Hi guys, welcome to Stone Age Roll Pit Barbecue. Right now we're going to go over some training videos with everyone to show them exactly what we expect of them, how to do it safely, how to prepare everything without having any kind of mishaps, and making sure that everything's prepared to our expectations. So, needless to say, we're going to start off in various different lessons and grow you in your entire menu from there. So, thank you very much. First thing we're going to start off with, the most pivotal tools that we use are pretty much our knives. You'll see right here we've got a vast array of tools that, handheld tools that we use to utilize and do our jobs, basically. Everything from spatula to tongs to a whisk to potato mashers, a baster, everything as simple as even just rubber gloves. This is all to kind of give you guys an idea of us being primarily a scratch kitchen. We want to make sure that you understand how to use all these tools, how to use them properly, as well as how to take care of them, clean them, make sure that they're sharp, make sure that that there isn't anything wrong with them, that they're not broken in any way, anything that's going to injure somebody. Because these are dangerous. If you don't respect them, they will send you to the hospital, and we definitely don't want that. So right now, I'm going to start off by identifying some of the tools that we use. This right here is kind of called a pancake. It's our spatula. It's what we use to really, reach in deep to the smoker and fork, in order to pick up slight embers or pork butt or something. A lot of times we have two different types of cooking. You'll hear this again later on in different training videos. We have cook to temp and cook to tender. Cooking to temperature means that it's safe serve, like with pork at 145 degrees, with meat, chicken, beef, well not beef, but chicken, poultry 165 degrees. That's cooking to temperature. And that means that it's safe to consume and you're not going to get sick off of it. You're not going to have any harmful bacteria. The 5-foot warm-up says that it's safe to consume. But that doesn't mean that it's done. At Stoney's, we cook to tender, which often means that we cook it way beyond that point in order to get that tenderness in there. Like the brisket will sometimes go up to 200 some odd degrees. And so we want to just make sure that you understand when we cook to tender, reaching into that smoker requires a big flat handled tool, sliding it underneath there and picking it up. Because if you just go and reach in and try to pick that thing up, it's just going to fall apart in your hands where you have a sacrificial lamb at the bottom of the smoker. That's not exactly good. So anyway, we got the pancake here. We also have what's called a rib hook, kind of a cool tool. This basically on ribs that are far back in the smoker, it's about 4 feet deep. So far back in the smoker, you can kind of slide this in between the rib and pull it out. But again, we cook to tender. So this tool isn't exactly always useful, and you can kind of tear up meat. So we don't use it too much unless we have a specific item that we need help with. Obviously, tongs, kind of self-explanatory. We've got a million of them around here. They're an invaluable tool. Coming over here on this side, obviously a potato masher. We spent many of hours behind this thing. We cook, again, everything from scratch. And so we don't have instant potatoes, a bunch of flakes mixed in some milk and water or whatever it is. We dice up every potato that we have, and oftentimes it's hundreds of pounds a week. And we dice it up, and every single one will get mashed up with this. Obviously, a whisk does a good job of mixing things together. Spatula, scraping edges. Baster, this is a pretty useful tool. We don't really sauce a whole lot as far as our meats go. However, when we do, we want to control it with this. This allows you to have proper even spread application across the board, so that like when you're saucing ribs to bring this on the line, we'll often sauce our ribs, throw them underneath the salamander, and broil it, and it'll give them a nice caramelization. What we don't want is puddle. This kind of eliminates the puddle side of things. You've got your portioning ice cream scoop. We utilize this to make sure that we don't have to weigh everything. We deal with scales a lot. We don't have to scale everything. So a lot of times if you have a tool that is already the size that you want, just grab up a scoop, throw it on there, and boom, you're done. You don't have to waste a whole lot of time. Obviously, gloves. Use them all the time. Always have gloves on. Wash your hands, yes, but gloves are huge. We have boxes and boxes and boxes of them. Obviously, don't throw them away needlessly. We don't want to have waste, but utilize the gloves. They'll save your hands. They'll keep you from having to, constantly be soiling all kinds of stuff. So, all right. So now we're going to get into this one right here is the scrape. We use this on the serving line, which is what we're currently doing our video on. This right here is mainly for when you're slicing the brisket or pork or any of the meats, really anything. You're going to get chunks, you're going to get grease, you're going to get all kinds of stuff puddling up on your board. And so what we do is we'll slide a trash can underneath and we scrape the line here. Makes a nice clean surface for the most part, and then we're able to bring out another piece of meat or basically reset our station. Keeping your station clean is vitally important to the success of every single order that comes across the board. A clean, organized station is what you need in order to be quick and make sure that orders go out correctly and not just a big greasy mess. Okay, another item on top of the scraper here is sanitation bucket. We believe that sanitation is absolutely key. We deal with a very, very messy cuisine. We deal with grease everywhere, and so sanitation buckets are so important. And you'll be trained in your food handlers training, your food handler card, or your testing for it. You're going to understand that how much sanitation bucket. It's really easy to do. You dip it with the test strip. Make sure that it's the right ratio of sanitation per water, so that basically sanitizer kills germs. We want that. So when you scrape, you rub it down with the sanitizer bucket, which is in one of the corners of the slicing area, and we have them stationed all over the restaurant. So if something becomes soiled, we're able to go to the bucket and get it nice and clean and safe. Okay, now we're going to go into our knives. First off, we have our whetstone. Whetstone is very, very important. There are multiple different slicers out here. We have another one in yellow. I have the one that I particularly don't like too much. I think it ruins the blades. It'll give you a sharp edge for a little while, but then you've got to really work at it in order to get a proper edge later. But anyhow, a whetstone is really vital. And we're going to go through exactly the mechanics of that here soon. This here, a lot of people actually believe that this steel is what we call it, or a honing rod, actually sharpens your knife. It actually does not sharpen your knife. It centers the blade. It hones the blade. The stone sharpens it. The steel centers it. So just remember that when you go to work on that. I'll explain a little bit more as we teach you how to use those. Now, a lot of times the brisket just gets so incredibly tender here that when you're using this slicer here, it just tears the meat apart. There's just no way of getting a good slice out of it. So sometimes we have to utilize this electric knife. There's no shame in that. A lot of people don't necessarily like them. But I say, hey, whatever works best, use it. Again, the slicer has a serrated blade. There are some slicers out there that have straight edge. They're a little bit harder to keep sharp. These, they don't really go dull too often. They can tend to shred up, like a fat on the, or the bark on the fat on particular items, but for the most part, they do a pretty good job. You got your 10-inch chef knife. These are pretty much the bread and butter of most chefs. The 10-inch and the 8-inch, you can tell that they're a little bit different. This is a French blade. This is a German blade. Anyhow, the importance of these is that they pretty much can do everything. You can trim ribs with them. You can fillet fish with them. They're literally used for absolutely everything in a kitchen. If the only knife that you had in a kitchen, if you're only allowed one, this would be the knife that you would want to have. And again, like I said, this is a shorter handle knife. I always recommend you become better at knife skills with a larger blade than you do with a smaller blade. And then once you become proficient, utilizing the more detailed aspects of a smaller blade as well. Obviously, a cleaver at one point in time in fairly regularly. This is the sharpest knife I have in the entire. I've had this cleaver for years. It's not very big, but it gets incredibly sharp, so it'll go through bones like butter. And obviously, you see a bunch of dents in the end of it, or the edge of it, and everything. It may have or not opened up a couple of cans with the camera. But this is an incredible tool. Most cleavers aren't this sharp, so they're more for blunt force, like trying to break through bone, basically. You'll do that sometimes with ribs. Then you have pretty much the knife that does get used the most in our shop, other than the slicer, is the boning knife. It's got a pretty flexible blade on it right here. It can really get in and fine tune areas that when you're trimming along brisket and everything, this is a great knife to have, especially if it's sharp. So here I'm going to do a quick reset, and then I'm going to show you guys how to sharpen these things, because I would rather you take 10 minutes out to sharpen all of your knives than to spend 3 hours hacking away at whatever meat that you're working on. The sharper the knife is, the less apt that you're going to be in causing injury. So we always want to keep our knife sharp. Don't ever hesitate to sharpen your knife. Okay? Be right back. Hello again. Okay, so we're going to take you through sharpening the knife, proper maintenance of the knife. It's always good to have a clean knife. Sanitation buckets over there. You can always wipe it down. It's very important to properly care for the cleaning, especially, and if you can get in close right here, these little areas right on the edge of the blade. Like this is a wood handled knife right here, so it means that it's somewhat porous, okay? And it's going to have gunk that can get in here. You got to make sure that when you clean this, grab the brush, grab whatever tool you need to make sure that you get in there and get into the little cracks here, because that's just a breeding ground for bacteria. So just be very, very careful. It's not that, just like our wood cutting boards, they require a lot of care, love. You don't want to let them soak in water for a long period of time. You want them dry, but you want them clean. So just remember that. Okay, so you've got this is called a three-sided whetstone, and for obvious reasons, it's because it needs to have some moisture on it in order to work properly. We primarily, the number one oil that you want to use on it is mineral oil, but really any kind of oil can grip. So sometimes we use our just standard vegetable oil. It tends to pool up down here towards the bottom of the container here. So you set that there, dip your fingers down, and just kind of get a decent lather on the stone itself, okay? Where there's a little bit of pooling in there. Now these stones are meant to be replaced. They're meant to be kind of worn down. You can see where I've got higher edges here on the ends and it starts lowering a little bit. That's because it's been used a lot. And that's okay. You want to have that kind of ability. Always have on top of your sanitizer bucket a rag, because when you go through and you slide the knife along the stone, what it's basically doing is a knife blade is, if you were to take a magnifying glass, say here on this chef knife here, or this cleaver here, you're going to see that it kind of tapers in as it goes up, and then it does even more so the last little fraction right there on the edge. Okay, so if you were to look at that in a magnifying glass and you got that tip that goes right here, what you're going to see are these little feathers that pop out of metal. That's actually what makes the knife sharp if you look at them really, really close. Now a lot of times those break off, and the more you use it, the more they break off. So what this does is it creates brand new, it basically eliminates the old and creates brand new feathers. But sometimes those feathers get to be a little bit too prominent. If they're bowed out a little too much, they break off easily, hence the steel. By dragging the steel along here, it'll kind of temper those and kind of make them to where they're not going to be so sharp that it dulls too quickly, basically. And so you utilize both tools when you're going to sharpen your knife. And then when those feathers start bending down as you use it,
that's why everybody thinks that the steel sharpens. What it really does is it brings those feathers back out when you go to sharpen it. And until those feathers break off, your knife is actually plenty sharp. Okay, so we're going to dive in here. I start on the coarse side of the stone. It's the one that has a little bit more grit to it. As you can see right here, it says coarse on it, so it's kind of, easy peasy. We're going to start off with our chef knife. Now, one thing I do want you to know, you see a difference between these two blades, right? These two blades. This one is a serrated, this one's a straight edge. You do not sharpen serrated blades. Don't even think about it. They're supposed to maintain their sharpness for a long period of time. If you sharpen it, you will ruin it. So don't even take it anywhere near the blade. If it goes dull, we get a new one. All right, so we've got this chef knife right here. So what you're gonna wanna do is, how this works is these blades have degrees of angles going into the blade. Typical chef knife is about 22 degrees, or I'm sorry, 16 degrees. No, 22 degrees, yeah, 22. Japanese steak knife, like what the Japanese chefs use to make sushi or anything like that, those are actually 16 degrees. Makes them a sharper blade, but they need to be sharpened more often. So we like to use these so we don't have to sharpen them as often. Okay, so a lot of times people have a very hard time trying to find the angle, the proper angle as far as which to sharpen the blade with. So what I encourage you to do, start with your blade right here like this, at a 90-degree angle. Then you're gonna half that to a 45-degree angle, like that. But then you're gonna half that to right there. That is the angle that you're looking for right there. So 90 degrees, 45 degrees, 22 degrees, okay? That's the angle that all German, French, Swedish knives are sharpened at. So 90, 45, 22, okay? All right, now what I like to do is I like to turn it this way. I can go ahead and start it this way, like this. And I want to put this, unless you have some sort of a mat to where this thing isn't going to move around, you could put it on a deal, but what I like to do is most of the time you don't want to sharpen towards you, but be careful. I put it up against my abdomen here so that it doesn't move around on me. So I start up here at the base of the blade, and I basically am going to drag it to here. I'm going to put my fingers right here, and all the way down, one even stroke. And then I'm going to slide it back up. Down, and back up. Down, and back up. You're going to want to do this the same amount of times on each side, because the idea is to make sure that you have complete coverage on both sides, because like I said, the narrow part of the blade tends to bow one way or another. That's the reason why you have a honing steel to recenter that edge. Switch hands. Right-handed, left-handed, a lot of times it just takes practice. Okay, now you see all of that grime that's building right in there? That is a mixture of the stone and metal shavings from this blade. So I'm going to take my sanitizer bucket. I'm going to go ahead and wipe that blade off, just like so. Okay, and then I'm going to wipe it down with my dry rag. Just like that. Now, we basically have just put a brand new edge on that blade, but now we got to kind of define it a little bit more, because it's just raw steel right now. It's just going to get dull really quick. So now you take your three side and you move it around to the middle. Again, dip your fingers in the oil, Make sure that it gets pretty decent coverage. Like so. And we're going to do that all over again. Okay? So, same angle, same everything. Now you can hear how it doesn't grab nearly as much. Do it again on the other side. Okay, again, wipe it down. Now you have the red side here, the orange, or whatever you want to call it. That's the fine side. I usually find that it's not always necessary to do that. I like to switch over to the honing steel at this point because it basically has about the same amount of grit to it. If I have a really, really long, like my slicer, my straight edge slicer, I'll run that along here because it just doesn't, it's too, the blade bends too much to really get a good grip on the steel. So, kind of the same thing. Make sure that you hide your thumb behind the guard, right here like this. And you're going to kind of do a little bit of the same movement. You're going to start up at the base and bring it down like this. But then, as you come back, you got to tilt your angle down, same direction. And on the back side, you're going to push the blade up against it. So it goes down this way and up this way. Down this way and up this way. Okay, do not, and I repeat, do not think that you're Bobby Flay and you're just going to sit here and just do this the whole time. That's stupid. You're going to hurt yourself, okay? Just make sure that you are able to, if you need to, you can put the blade, the tip of the honing rod down here, and you can do this. Whatever is going to make it safer for you to make sure that you don't injure yourself, but you're actually taking care of the knife. But like I said, you can come out like this, and then when you go the other direction, to make sure that you get both sides of the blade in the proper direction, change directions. Now it takes a while. This feels awkward at first, but eventually you're going to figure it out. We slice hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of pounds of meat each week. You're going to sharpen your knives often, so you're going to get pretty decent with being able to hold on to it and everything. So that's that blade there. And like I said, you can quite literally do this with any blade. And that's pretty much all you really need to do. Now, to test the sharpness of these, you hold the blade like this, and you just kind of rub your finger edgewise across it. Don't slide it up, use some common sense. But just pull your thumb across the blade, and you're gonna feel a little bit of a grip. If there's an area on that blade that you don't feel that grip, that means you gotta keep sharpening it. But this is a very short knife. This one here. A lot of times up towards the tips of the blade become a little bit harder, but I mean that is a nice even sharpening. Now something that you're going to see right here, you see how that edge dips down right there? Where it just kind of, you got your main part right there and then it kind of dips down. That is basically how many times this knife has been sharpened. I learned how to sharpen knives from an old-time butcher who had been a meat cutter for years and years and years. And he literally had drawers full of knives that used to be this size, but now were only this thick, and they look like little ice picks. He just sharpened and sharpened and sharpened them, and they held their edges. So, I mean, a good knife, a good solid full tang knife that is solid in your hands, that you have no problem with, is invaluable. You take care of it, it's going to take care of you, it'll last you your lifetime. Thanks.